Good morning, everyone. Fred here again with a little boat maintenance, actually, sail maintenance. Because I had the boat on a mooring and didn't have really good access to large amounts of fresh water, the sails often sat bagged up and with a bit of salt on them. And plus, given the age of the sails and the use, the grommets in the sails have deteriorated. You can see right in here where this is just completely corroded away. So fortunately, I have new grommets. I bought two gross. For those of you of the younger generation, a gross is 12 dozen. In other words, 144 in a bag. And I bought two bags quite a few years ago, and I'm on bag number 2 now. So I've used them for a lot of different things. Things like my sail covers or my sun cover here. Put grommets in there and put little 1/4-inch bolts to hold it together with the sunscreen. Sail bags that I've made, a whole lot of different things. They're very, very handy. And I only recommend that you use spur grommets. The most common size probably being a number 2 spur grommet. It gives you a finished inside diameter here of about 3/8 of an inch. And the only tool to use to set spur grommets is one of these quite expensive sets that you can buy from Sailrite. A standard number 2 grommet setter will not work. They're smaller slightly. You need specifically the one for spur grommets. And that tool also comes with, or it used to come with, I don't know, it might be separate now. It has a cutter. Just put this on the fabric, smack it with a mallet on something that gives, like wood, and it'll poke a perfectly good hole of the right diameter for a number 2 spur grommet. So the cutter and the grommet setter are basically a matched set. So now I'm going to extract this one, and I have regular hank-on sails with the good old made in Sweden jib hanks, bronze jib hanks. And it's a bit of a chore to get them out of there, but I have a fairly good system I'll show you here. I use a pair of curved jaw vice grips. You can see the curve in the jaws here. And that allows it to be a little bit bigger on this end where the pin is, yet still clamp down on this thinner part here. That's very important because if you use a straight jaw, it will tend to flatten the barrel that the pin slides into. Next is I take a common pair of what we used to call, when I was an electrician, dikes, diagonal cutters. These are kind of an inexpensive copy. The ones that I like the most, which I managed to drop overboard, of course, are made by Klein Tools in the United States, specifically for electricians and electrical use. Got great cutters, hardened steel. They'll cut through a 16-penny nail without damaging the cutters. And the distance between the pin and the beginning of the jaws is less. So this pin is actually up and about here. So you get more leverage when you're cutting. Plus, this part here is angled up at about 10 degrees. So you kind of have a built-in lever if you're Like if you can get under nail head, you can lever up pretty easy. Anyway, let me extract this thing. So the trick is to get the jaws of the diagonal cutters down in this opening here. And then I use the vice grips both as a leverage point and in order to hold on to the hank, because it takes a bit of oomph to get this done. Now I only got 2 hands, so I can't show you actually prying it open. So what's necessary is to pry it open like that. Now, of course, the problem is the manufacturers never recommend reusing these hanks, because bending twice this little arm often causes it to fracture, so the little tab breaks off. This one bent pretty easily, so I think it's good to reuse. Now also go in there and scrape off a bunch of the corrosion on the barrel and the pin so it slides freely in the device. So after a bit of wiggling, there's the hank. You can see on the pin here, and up here is caked up. It's salt water, or salt from salt water, caked up on there. It's also important on the shaft there to scrape off lumps and bumps of corrosion so it slides easily back and forth in the body of the hank. Here you can see more clearly the corrosion on the inner part of the grommet. The grommets come in 2 pieces. I have a piece like this. It's like a little top hat kind of. And it goes up through the hole from one side. And then there's a ring with the little spurs on it that goes on the other side. Doesn't matter which side is up. Good sailmakers will, of course, add a nice little piece of plastic, flexible, to help prevent chafe of the sail material around where the bolt rope is. Now, once again, I can't really hold this and lever it out of there, but this is where the dikes come in very handy, because I can get in here with the jaw flat like this and get under that rim of the spur part of the grommet, and it'll just peel off of there, because that these are nickel plated brass, which ostensibly makes them last a little longer because the nickel is more noble than the brass. The thing that really tears them up is the fact that the jib hanks are made out of bronze, which is more noble than the brass. So of course the brass goes away, and the bronze jib hank suffers virtually no damage. So there is the extracted grommet. You can see the corrosion, and the spur part was pretty easy to grab a hold of with the dikes and just peel it off there. Next is, of course, installing the new grommet. So, of course, this is pretty much simplicity itself. There's the top hat inserted from the bottom into the hole. And there's the spur part, and there's the spur part sitting on top. Now, have to set that all up on that little tower do use a wooden block between that big chunk of steel and anything like a fiberglass cockpit seat. And then of course there's the pin. What that does is flare over the part of the top hat that grips the spur part of the grommet. And what you want to do is it fits down inside that hole in the base. And you want to rock it around and make sure you've got it sitting absolutely flat. And on the top end there, I recommend a nice substantial, this is a bronze mallet. Doesn't embed minute steel particles into anything like stainless steel or brass or bronze, so you don't get little rush tracks all over stuff that you hit with it. And there is a new, nicely installed grommet. And here's the next candidate going along the luff of the sail. You can see here there's a top hat portion that holds the spur part of the grommet in place is completely corroded away. So they're just kind of slopping in there. The problem with that is most good sails have a reinforcing patch here where the grommet goes, plus the bolt rope. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of sailcloth there. But you don't want your hank bearing against the cloth, because then it'll chafe not only the cloth, but it'll start chafing up against the bolt rope here. Anyway, this sail is my Genoa. It's got about I don't know, 15, 16 hanks on the luff. The same. I did my Yankee yesterday. I had to replace almost every grommet, and a number of the hanks. This little arm broke off. Fortunately, I have a nice bag of spare. Now it would be great to put all nice, shiny new hanks on there. But when I bought these many years ago, I think I got them on eBay, they were somewhere around $13 US each. And I'm sure in the 10 or 12 years intervening since I bought these, they're probably a lot closer to $20 each US. So you can imagine replacing 15 to 20 of these on the luff of the sail runs into some serious money. The grommets are pretty inexpensive. I think I paid, when I bought those, something on the order of, because they come in, you know, you buy one, but it's actually 2 pieces. They were maybe, I don't know, 15 cents a piece. So buying a gross is not going to send you to the poorhouse. Now, sure, you need to, these plastic chafe guards are also available from Sailrite. I think they charge an exorbitant sum for a little piece of plastic. It's I think pretty much basically the plastic that goes in the windows of Dodgers. And for comparison, a shiny new hank and my rather crusty old one. Amazing, since this is much younger than this. Of course, this has been safely stowed away in my bosun's stores down inside the boat. In addition to this type of grommet, you can see right there in the casting, Sweden. These things have probably been made identical to this for 100 years now. So they have certainly stood the test of time. I've had them on virtually every hank on sale that I've ever owned, except for ones perhaps that I bought used. In addition to that, they also make this kind of hank. And rather than having the little hook that you bend over, it's got these two holes. And what you do is you take a sailor's twine, which is pre-waxed, and you put that over the grommet like that, and you basically lash it to the sail through these holes and through the grommet. It's a rather intricate process with how you put the stuff in there to keep it from wiggling around. You don't just go back and forth between the holes. You go through the hole, through the grommet, back up through the other grommet, down in the, or through the other hole, back in the grommet. You go back and forth here a bunch of times. I guess everybody has their own personal way they like to do it. I've never done it because these hanks probably came in a grab bag full of stuff that I bought from eBay many years ago. I find other uses for them. One of the disappointing things is that in order to save some money, they use the brass grommets, or the nickel-plated brass grommets. But this is the last hank by the foot of the sail. See, these things are all stainless steel, and it takes a hydraulic tool to set those properly. I don't know if this uses like a hand-operated tool like for the brass grommets, or you need the hydraulic deal to set these. But in order to save a few dollars in the manufacturer's sales, they use those brass grommets, whereas I would much prefer to have had these grommets in every hole instead of the brass ones, because these are stainless steel, and you can see no corrosion, no wear. Much better deal for especially people who are doing long distance sailing and most of their own maintenance.